All right, what we're looking at today is we want to find all real solutions of the following functions. But guess what? Before we start, if you're new to this channel, subscribe to the channel, like, and share this video. So let's get into it. All right, whenever we have functions that we want to find the roots, or what we call the solutions, what we want to do is we're going to have to set the function to 0. So we're going to have to set this to 0, which means that we're going to rewrite this as x to the third minus 15x. We're going to let this equal to 0. The reason why we're setting this to 0 is because the solutions are actually the zeros, finding the zeros for this function here. First and foremost, when I look at this, I do realize that I could factor out x. So because I can factor out x, I'm going to factorize out x out of these terms. So x can be factored out. So I'm going to open a parentheses. And then I'm going to divide x to the third. I'm going to divide x to the third by x. And this is going to leave me with x squared. Secondly, I'm going to divide this term here by x. So I'm going to have minus 15. And this is still equal to 0. Now, based on what we have, we do have x into x squared minus 15, and this is equal to 0. Now, because two things multiply to give a 0, then we will be applying the zero product rule. Now, what is the zero product rule? The zero product rule suggests that if two or more things multiply and the result is a 0, then we could say all of them are 0 or one of them is a 0. So right now, we're going to split this, right? So at this moment, we're going to say, guess what? It's either x that is a 0. If not, then x squared minus 15 is equal to 0. Now, already, when we look at this, this is one of our solutions here, right? This is one of our solutions here because x is equal to 0 already. That is solved. So we have that done. But now we're going to focus on x squared minus 15 equal 0. So we're focusing now on this piece. Now, let us see what we have. Now, we could add 15 to both sides so that we could isolate the x squared. So we actually have x squared, which is now equal to 15. And then in order to find x, I'm going to take the square root of both sides. So I'm going to take the square root of x squared, and that is going to leave me with x. So I'm going to take the square root of 15. But when I take the square root of 15, I'm going to have to put a plus or a minus. Because when we take the square root of a number, it's going to be a plus or a minus. So in this case, my response is plus or minus the square root of 15. And then we could break that down if we want to get an approximate value. So the square root of 15 is actually, so it is approximately positive or negative 3.87298, and it goes on. All right, so we could leave it here or we could leave it here. So that is example 1. So in example 2, we want to find all real roots for this. So when I look at this though, what I'm going to do here is I'm going to set it equal to 0 first. So I'm going to rewrite this. So x to the third plus 3x squared minus x minus 3 is equal to 0. Because I see 4 terms and I'm seeing where I could group them. So I'm going to group this piece and then I'm going to group these. So this is my group 1 and this is my group 2. I'm trying to get this factorized and I see that it can factorize. So what's the common term for the first term here? It's x to the second power. So if I divide x to the second power if I divide it into this, if I divide x to the second power in this, I'm actually going to get x. And if I divide it into the 3x squared, I'm actually going to be left with positive 3, and then I'm closing it. Now I'm going to factorize this piece right there. So if I factorize that piece, I'm going to take out a negative 1. So if I divide negative 1 into negative x, we're going to be left with positive x, and negative 1 into negative 3 here will leave me with positive 3. And remember, this is still equal to 0. So right now what I got is x plus 3 being the common factor here, and then x squared minus 1 will go in the other bracket. So basically what I have is x plus 3 into x squared minus 1, and this is going to equal to 0. Remember though that because two things here multiply to give a 0, then I will definitely apply the zero product rule. That says so it's either x plus 3 that is equal to 0, which means that if I subtract 3 from both sides, I'm going to have one of my solution here be negative 3. Or it is x squared minus 1, which is equal to 0. So in this case, if I add 1 to both sides, then x squared is equal to 1. Remember though that I'm going to have to take the square root so that I could get x alone because I do have x squared. So I'm going to drop the square root here, which means I'm going to have to drop the square root over here as well. So remember when you drop the square root, it's going to be a plus or a minus. So x is equal to positive or negative 1. Now, if you want to write out all the solutions, here are they. X is equal to negative 1, 1, and negative 3. All right, so these are my 3 solutions. All right, let's take a look at the last case. So let us say we are looking at this. It is a similar idea where we're going to set everything to 0. So we have 2x to the third plus 2x, and this is equal to 0. In this case, I do realize that 2x is common, so I'm going to factor out 2x. So when I divide 2x into 2x to the third, I'm going to have x squared. And when I divide 2x into 2x, I'm going to have 1, and this is equal to 0. At this time, I do realize that two things multiply to give a 0. So I'm going to say it's either 2x is equal to 0, which means if I divide both sides by 2, I'll definitely find one of my solutions to be x is equal to 0. Or x to the second power plus 1 is equal to 0. Now I'm going to have to subtract 1 from both sides. So x squared is equal to negative 1. In an effort to find x, this is x squared, I'm going to have to get rid of my square by taking a square root. So when I do this though, the moment I drop this, I realize that, hey, we can't take the square root of a negative number to get a real solution. And remember that initially we're trying to find real solutions. This would be an imaginary solution. So guess what? This won't work. All right. So this is not going to give us a real solution. So the only solution that we have for this problem, the only real solution is x is equal to 0. So this is it. What it really means is that this graph only crossed the x-axis once. That's what it means. See you next time when we do another video.